We are back with Mr. Ruel Johnson. Ruel, welcome and thank you for joining us, buddy.
Thank you for having me again, Sally.
Awesome. Well, for those who are not acquainted with Ruel, who is
Oh
Ruel?
God,
Huh?
don't worry, long intro. I think conversation is very important.
Tell us who is Ruel Johnson and why does he care what happens to Guyana?
Well, I think the primary thing is I'm a citizen. I think it's my most important perspective on intervention as a citizen of Guyana. Secondly, I'm a writer, and most writers and most artists think that their voice is important or whatever and stuff like that. So I guess from that perspective, those two perspectives.
Mm-hmm. And when did
Yeah,
you?
go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
I can hear you clearly.
When did you come to first realize that you want to focus on encouraging a better Guyana for all its peoples?
It's a process. That sort of evolves.
Mm-hmm.
I started out when I was in my late teens, with the interest in writing,
Mm-hmm.
and as you engage in society, I mean, as you write, as you're writing, and I think that happens to most writers. Hopefully, is that do you evolve from a primarily internal perspective to a communal one, and I think sometimes it ends up being national or regional or whatever. But I think for me it's most acute at the national level, and that happened. I think it evolved between my late teens and my early 20s when I was just starting to write, as well as which is around the time of the 2001 elections.
Mm-hmm.
So that confluence of events sort of shaped whatever concern it is that I think I express right now.
In reflection, Ruel, I mean, you've written extensively. You write every day on social media. I see it. I mean, sometimes I am tempted to as an activist, only that I resent labels. I don't like labeling people. It's too restricting. But you mentioned from 18 and so on you've been writing. What sort of things that were happening that informed your writing?
Well, a lot of this is I've had to look back in retrospect,
Mm-hmm.
and to see the sort of events that happened. But when I was in my late teens, going into early 20s, the society, I mean, then as now was in a state of great flux, particularly political flux. We're now leaving out to the incidents of 97, 98,
Mm-hmm.
the sort of social upheaval, the riots, etc., and then leading into the 2001 elections, and then the subsequent prison outbreak a couple of years after, about 2 years after, and the violence that sort of spawned, and that eventually made it into my writing, but I also made it into, again, not to say I'm activist, but my activism at the time. I mean, I was involved, for example, back then Carter Center was still operational here.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I was involved in was the planning of an election street fair in 2001, around that time. Then, of course, the issue of race came up. And around that time, this Rights of the Child committee had started something called a race-free zone campaign. So, in retrospect, when I think back, all that helped to shape, I think, my outlook. And I keep saying that I also went to President's College, which I think laid the foundation in the sense that it gives us a microcosm of how the society is in that we had to live in together and create and act and interact with people that you wouldn't normally meet in your if you were living in a certain space. People from Indian villages met people from African villages, people Amerindian communities, all put into that space where they had to live together. You didn't leave your classmates after the school bell rang. You had to go and then you were in the same dorm with them. And then you had dinner with them after, etc. So that's the sort of lady foundation. If I come to start a track and evolution of how I engage.
I'm curious about this, Ruel. I know we are supposed to be we're going to be talking about culture, citizenship and cohesion.
Yeah.
But citizenship and this idea of going to a very prestigious school.
Yeah.
The education is an excellent standard, but living together with people from various communities.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
In retrospect, Ro, what did you think that type of cohesion, that type of familiarity breed among you students?
Well, you see, it isn't going off track, It actually leads directly to what I'm speaking about.
Mm-hmm.
Our cultural divisions come primarily out of ignorance. That is exploited by political ends. Fear and ignorance, etc. But if it is you live with somebody, you know them, and you eat with them, etc. Those cultural divisions, even as you retain whatever customs you have from your family, etc. People are not operating from areas of personal darkness with each other. It's not a mystery what a Christian person goes home and does or what a Hindu person goes home and does. From a very early age, you were exposed to that sort of thing. So, and eventually, whatever little preconceptions you might have had as a young person,
Mm-hmm.
got stymied. Whatever prejudices you that might have that sort of prejudice that calcify as people grow older or stymied there. And these are primarily cultural prejudices. So the leads speak precisely to the concept of citizenship. And citizenship is about having a sense of belonging and worth within a particular space.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is that you had a sense of belonging and worth within President's College, I think that's, and you could deal with different people because of the cultures, and you led a more or less cohesive life with everybody else. Those are the sort of things that lead to or lend to functioning within this wider social space. So I said, President's Culture offers a sort of microcosm of Guyanese society,
Mm-hmm.
except as a more or less a functioning microcosm. As opposed to this functional, larger macrocosm in which we operate.
What drives you in the world?
Huh?
What drives you?
At this point in time, I'm not sure. I guess the hope in the sense that, and I usually like to use Havel's distinction as hope, optimism versus hope.
Mm-hmm.
Hope in the sense that if it is that you can see something, Plato had this concept of the cave, wherein you it takes time to see the world in the abstractions, as opposed to the concrete things behind the abstractions, behind the shadows on the wall. And if this you exited the cave, I think you have a duty to go and bring other people outside into the sunshine, although it might be blinding. And that is how I think that's what drives me. I think that our problems are eminently solvable. When I look at this place, I see tremendous potential, and I see very little things that can be done in order for us to come together as a people and work together to develop, to take us out of darkness. And for me, if it is that I think that I've seen that. What drives me is the I guess the desire to bring other people out,
Well,
as many people as possible.
when you were a young man in President's College, or let's come forward to 18.
Yeah.
There was a cultural evolution. There's always seemed to be a cultural evolution taking place in any growing society. The cultural evolution that you witnessed or remember witnessing then, compare that to today. How would you?
We've had is cultural stasis. I mean, we've had, or in many ways, cultural devolution. If it is that you look at the forms of expression of culture, as in what people are allowed to naturally express as a society, we've actually devolved. I mean, as a simple thing as we went from calypso being ubiquitous and being popular and a popular art form, and speaking to the national mood, to On the Gale to share it being deliberately under the guise of decentralizing Mashumani celebrations, taking the calypso to every background possible without seeing the need, not so much for decentralization doesn't mean marginalization. And what we had is a case of marginalization of culture masking itself as decentralization. You could have had the same calypso sung in Hubu Bagdam and have it sung in Georgetown. Fast forward now, we have the banning of calypsos from the radio. So we've had a sort of devolution. And I think one of the primary things I'm trying to do is to stem that. We moved from having the Ghana Prize held fairly regularly to being held when the government wants, and having a sort of ad hoc workshop mechanism after it peaked, and when there was a genuine concern to move it to a more inclusive prize. Upscale restaurant is closed. We bring in more foreign artists than we export by far. The balance of artistic trade is enormous. So we've evolved both in absolute terms as well as relative terms. We are supposed to have grown culturally. We have not. Mashramani is dying.
How does one measure that kind of growth?
It measures easily. You measure it in terms of institutions. What functional institutions exist to promote and sustain culture and heritage? It says in our constitution, constitution exists to preserve and build upon our heritage. We have the Umaniyana burning down. That's built heritage that's been destroyed. City Hall crumbling. We have the cultural center having less plays. We have Ghana remains, pardon me for saying this, but the ass end of regional literary affairs, even as the rest of the region is pushing forward. All that is deliberate. So we have the measurable things. We have consistently, I was contacted by a publisher recently from England, and I've deliberately sought not to have my books published overseas. And they're putting together a collection of Caribbean fiction, etc. And Caribbean poetry, sorry. The one country, and the country that's formerly had much of it, was expat literature, of literary achievement. There's nobody there. I agreed to submit some of my poems, so that Ghana could be represented. But I cannot be the lone person, and I found that increasingly. I'm supposed to be in Guadeloupe in April. My book is the lone resident Guyanese book to be shortlisted for a prize there, a Caribbean award. So again, yeah, we've regressed in very immeasurable ways.
How? Let me see here. Who is not? Who do you, who's not listening to this sort of appeal, Ruel? That needs to
Everybody,
listen.
frankly, everybody. We need to have something done from a policy perspective. Policy formulation is the privilege of the executive. That's not being done from the executive perspective. However, implementation of policy is government in general, which is inclusive of parliament. That has not been done from the opposition parliamentary perspective as well, holding the toast to the fire. So even the artists themselves find it hard to think from a policy perspective to ensure that heritage is preserved, and building upon heritage, creative industries are encouraged. So it's an uphill task. And more importantly, no, let me backtrack on this in the sense that I would have said that the citizenry, general citizenry, are not listening, but in fact they are. It's just that they don't have a forum in which to express the fact that they're listening, but they are listening.
What keeps you going? What makes you get up and fight this fight every day?
I honestly, it's as I said before, I don't feel that it's that much of a choice. It's something that I feel I have to do. I know what to do. I have made the consideration that if it is, because it's two fights to me. First of all is the cultural one, but then there's also the political one, because they are tied in place. The political system depends upon cultural divisions, and so it seeks to perpetuate it. If it is that the political system cannot be fixed, cannot be upturned, which it needs to be, come May 12th, I think I made the conscious decision to take the cultural battle elsewhere. My concerns extend, they're at most acute on Guyana, but they're not relegated, they're not restricted to Guyana alone. I have concerns about the state of the world, I have concerns about the state of the region, the Caribbean region. So, which I'll have to tackle anyway. They feel I have to tackle anyway. So, my thing is,
what are you
sign off on Guyana.
What frightens you about the state of Guyana today? What frightens you the most?
I've said it recently. I think that we are in a state, we are in a pre-dictatorship era. And what I've seen, what frightens me is what I previously referred to as the apathy. I think evil is a very banal thing. When I say evil, I don't mean the sense of individual evil. Because I think it's this. I think people are just, when a man a young boy or a young girl and imprison them for years on end, that's evil. Worse yet, though, and far more boring and far less sensational, is institutionalized evil, and that creeps up on you. And you only see it. You don't see it when the social structures are being undermined. You see it as in the manifestation, like impunity. Like, for example, the promotion of two police officers that tortured a young man, burned his genitals. That is evil. That is socially sanctioned and politically sanctioned evil. And the banality of it and the failure to adequately respond to it by the average citizen, that is what scares me. The political I'm not afraid of the politicians. I'm not afraid of the
It's,
danger coming from them.
it's silence.
What scares?
It's silence.
Yeah, I didn't hear you.
It's silence.
The silence, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's changing now. I mean, people are speaking up, but not speaking up enough. But it's better than nothing. It's better than what we had before.
Mm-hmm.
The silence is what scares me.
Well, you know, I invited you here, and these half-hour segments, and I didn't realize. I mean, it's interesting
flies.
how time runs. You know, time flies, and but
Yeah.
stay true, and you'll be a steady participant, Ruel, because you have much to say.
Yeah, but that said, I mean, I think we had a started discussion this before.
Sorry?
I have much to say. I have much to say. Like Bob Marley.
I have a question to ask you about that.
Yeah.
I have a question to ask you about that. The
Yeah.
other day, you wrote something sort of provocative.
Yeah.
And someone said, the comment they made was, I can't remember which of it was Shakespeare they quoted or so on. But it was sort of an advice to save some of what you have to say for your book, lest you tell everything.
Oh,
What was your response to that, without calling names or anything? I mean, not response. Well, what I mean is, how do you feel about sharing so much of you, or talking so much about what you're observing, versus saving it for your book?
I think I operate in two specific spheres. One, and I guess it's a distinction has to be made. One, and I know time is short. There's the literary, which has more long-term concerns, etc. And then there is the social-political. I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense to write in high commentary and a great deal of introspection and artistry in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I feel good that 100 years down the line, some young person is going to pick up that book and have some relevance communicated to their particular experience. But it does nothing for me if I sacrifice my responsibility to speak out now.
Mm-hmm.
In this day, I think we are in a state of flux. I think that out of what's happening now, something stronger can be built for the future of Guyana. And I would feel I can't put one on hold and sacrifice the other. It's so I understand where the person's coming from. Definitely, I mean, yeah, posterity, but posterity means very little to my family member who might be walking on the road and suddenly get shot by the police. I mean, if the system doesn't change, and if I don't directly impact upon this system changing, very little.
In the chat room, Ruel, wanted to said, or asked rather, how do you get those who are not listening to listen and ensure that we maintain our culture? I was in Guyana in 2013 and 2014, and on both visits, there were foreign artists performing at events.
Of course, that's the thing. And this is perfectly right. The balance of artistic trade, and you have to look at it from that issue, a perspective not just of cultural expression, but creative industry. What you need to do is have a policy in place, copyright, for example, intellectual property legislation in general, greenhousing studios, marketing plans for the local music industry, listening to the people. The Ministry of Culture held a creative industries workshop a year ago, in which you were to give the results to move forward. 2 weeks after, a year after, not a single word has been heard from them. So what we need to do is put the system in place, get the policy in place, and then implement it. And that's how you get people to listen. You build a platform in which you can exchange ideas.
Are you hopeful for these changes?
I will try my best to implement the changes that I'm closing off the policy I'm working on, Guyana's cultural policy initiative. I will put forward an implementation plan. I will bring stakeholders to the table around the end of this month, have them look at what I've conceived, and then seek to have it implemented.
Well, once again, my brother, thank you for sharing your time. I really appreciate it. And as I said, stand by. We're not going to be broadcasting every Sunday for the time being because I have to manage my time. But
just before I go,
sure.
I actually just got a message for me to follow up on this Caribbean Film Academy script writing thing because again, as they asked and the stuff like this. So I actually got, as soon as they come up now, I have to go and respond because the friend of mine, it's a script writing competition, regional script writing competition.
I don't know you keep up, brother. I don't know you keep up, but keep up the good works. And as they say, a luta continue, all right?
Yeah, a luta continue.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Okay, take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.